For those with good taste.
Welcome back, Tasties and Tastettes, to another movie review. It's your boy, Lenny, joined again, as always, with Lil Diddy himself. Dante, how are you?
Nah, get the hell out of here.
And this week, we're talking the movie Heretic. But before we do that, make sure to like, comment, and hit the subscribe button right down below. Thank you so much.
Also, give a click on that notification bell.
Ding, 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 ding.
Hey.
Heretic, Dante. Movie that is off to a pretty positive start. $1.2 million in first night previews. Thursday night previews, estimating at $10 million for the weekend, which would be a good performance out of them. Another A24 film.
I feel like this is probably a low budget, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's all set pretty much within one location.
Yeah, I'd give it like a, 6-8 million?
Maybe more.
Maybe more?
I imagine 15 to 20 might be the correct amount. It could be less.
Okay.
You're probably right, actually, because there's no special effects really or anything.
Not really, no.
So maybe it's closer to 10. I just assume with who knows what Hugh Grant's asking these days. Speaking of Hugh Grant, I've never seen this movie, but apparently he was cast in this film based off of his work in the movie Cloud Atlas from 2012. Thought that was weird.
Never even heard of it.
This is one of the least interesting trivia sections I've ever found on IMDb, by the way. Like, there's just 6 things, and there's only one thing I found of any interest. And while you, I assume, look up the budget, I'll let you hear this, okay?
Yeah.
So, Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East, which were the two girls in this, okay? You don't know how to do 2 things.
I'm listening, yeah.
No.
The ladies were the 2 girls in this,
You were locked in.
Yeah, I might have missed the names.
They were both raised as Mormons in real life.
Oh, okay.
So they were able to give valuable insight into their religion when shooting the movie. They're both no longer Mormon, though. Part of me thinks religion should be like a gang or like a biker gang.
Blood in, blood out.
Yeah, like you shouldn't just get to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or you have to do one last thing for them before you're allowed to go. Like you have to pay your debt to the church, to the Book of Mormon. Yes, I still have a ringtone in 2024.
That's crazy.
Leave it alone, people.
It's even crazier for you to have your phone on ring.
I didn't know it was, if I'm being completely honest. Yeah. So, Mormon, Book of Mormon. Do you ever see that movie?
No.
Me neither.
No.
Good on us.
I don't think I will either.
Here's the thing I ran into as far as struggle with this film. And this isn't a bad thing. I wish I knew more about religion. Not that I want to be more religious,
but you wanted to understand more of the context.
Yeah.
I got you.
And I saw another movie this week that also was very religious. So I've just run into this twice now where I'm I don't know enough. So some of this is going over my head. Yeah. But I still, with that being said, like I said, it's not a bad thing that I don't want to be more religious. It's just I got to be
more informed.
Yeah. I thought that this movie was really interesting and the way that they were speaking about religion and the way Hugh Grant's you felt like he was a person who had gone to school for this and he could just go.
Yeah.
He was just
no, that was definitely probably one of the brighter parts of this movie. It's just the way it brings up that discussion of what is religion really, and that whole broad conversation of what is the true religion. Throughout the theme of this movie, and they brought up some really interesting comparisons and stuff between the religions, and I thought all of that stuff was really interesting.
And I think that he might have said a line like this towards the beginning of the movie where he was talking about young kids and religion and how for a long time religion was something that you
were born into.
Yeah. You were born into it. You
were taught
he did
to
say
something along those lines. Did you choose to follow this path, or were you put on this path by your parents?
Yeah. And then he talks about how the reason religion isn't as popular, isn't as on the forefront any longer, is because we're taught to question things more. And I think part of that is the access to more content, to more conversation. Like that's the plus and the minus of social media, right? Is like you see a bunch of stuff that we wouldn't have seen when we were 12 years old on the internet. That's on the internet now as far, and like part of that is the way different religions act, the way more things are disproven, and then we're not fed like whatever. Like I can't imagine the wiring your brain goes through to go to like a Christian school or like some type of religious school
in this day and age.
Well, even when we were kids, like how that wires your brain to think about religion. And again, I don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing, because I think throughout this movie, they do a good job of balancing like you should question religion, but at the same time, like faith shouldn't be a bad thing. Like it's just looking to something else for comfort, whatever it might be. Like I thought they just did a good job of balancing that. So it was both something I wish I had a better understanding, because I think I'd appreciate this movie even more if I had that. But at the same time, I thought it just introduced like the scripting was done in a way that I was really like enthralled. Like I was
yeah, just the overall concept of it was like really intriguing.
It's very dialogue heavy for the first like hour.
But I didn't hate it.
No, I think in a good way. Like,
yeah.
And I guess my next positive would just be, man, like Hugh Grant was such a perfect balance of like the charisma that I'm not a huge Hugh Grant guy, but like to me, Hugh Grant is like early 2000s, late 90s, like rom-com like guy more than he's anything else. And it's not like I've seen a lot of his stuff in the past 10 or 15 years. But I think he did like 2 Weeks Notice when I was younger. Like he did some like Sandra Bullock stuff, whatever, movies like that where he's just like a super likable, very funny, witty guy. And he's got like a charm to him.
He hasn't really done much with like this kind of a character.
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, no.
Okay.
I think they said it's only the second time playing a villain, and the other time this was in the IMDb things. But like, again, I didn't know the movie. Hugh Grant's second horror film after The Lair of the White Worm, which was in 1988. Yeah, so he hasn't done horror, and this isn't
really horror as much as it is like thriller. I'd say.
Thriller, suspense. I think there is a horror aspect to it, but there's different genres of horror, and I think this just fits into. It's a psychological thriller. I think. I don't want to spoil anything just yet, so like I won't give specific, but I think there is some aspects of.
I think I know what you're hinting to, but yeah.
But because there's so much of this like hindered or like hinged on his performance. Like if his performance isn't good, and I want to give props to the two girl leads as well, because I thought they were very, very good playing their roles.
All played off of each other really well.
Yeah, but I think him being able to balance some of the best like villains in these psychological thrillers, they have to have this charisma that almost makes them likable, like their ability to turn on a dime between that charm seeming very like heart, like warming and like you're brought into it, but then that same charm flips and you're like,
it's like he's flipping between
guy. Yeah,
he's flipping between being like charismatic and unhinged.
It's like he's looking into a light, and it's like you're seeing the lit side, and it's like super happy and positive, but then like it shifts to like the side that's got the shadow on it, and it's a whole different person to a point, but they're the two of the same coin. It's like I just think the stuff that I know him for, he was able to maintain in this movie while bringing the sinister aspect out of himself. And just like, I mean, you believed what he was saying. I think he just did a very good job as an audience member, like drawing you in on what he's talking about, because he's making a lot of valid points. And the great part of this movie is that discussion that you get between these two girls that people don't know. Like they're
Mormon missionaries,
door-to-door salesmen.
Okay. Sure.
That's what in my head I was just like, this is crazy that like I don't like, you don't think about like we deal with Jehovah's Witnesses, stuff like that. I've never had a Mormon church person come to my house.
Well, what it seemed like is they get calls from people requesting more information, because that's how they ended up there, right? Like, it wasn't necessarily like a cold call, like, hey, what's up? We want to talk to you about.
I think it's a little bit of both, because they show them on the street walking by all the people saying like, hi, I'm sister whatever from the church. Do you want to hear more about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? I think it's a little bit of both, where they're out there fishing for people to draw in, which I liked that he pointed out how, like, like that's kind of ridiculous in a way that, like, you have to go around and sell your religion to gain more followers in, like, it's like social media before it was social media,
Yeah.
But these two girls that have just been taught this stuff, like they were raised in it for a large portion of their life, so they have an understanding, but they only have a very, like, singular perspective on that religion, like that is their religion, although one of the girls was converted, right? So she had, you could tell she had a little bit more of a depth of knowledge.
It wasn't that she was converted, it was that her mother converted.
Yes.
So it wasn't around her whole life, whereas the other girl, like, was fully born into it.
Yeah. So they end up going to this man's house, played by Hugh Grant, which you can see all this in the trailer. And from there, things kind of just escalate to him playing like a game of cat and mouse with them, based around their belief in religion. So the other thing that one of the other things that I liked a lot, and I'll hold actually some of that till spoilers. One thing that stood out to me, how do you feel about the camera work in this?
I guess it didn't necessarily stand out to me, but now that I'm thinking back on it, like, I think it was good.
I thought it was fantastic. Like, I took a note about it because
was there like a specific camera angle?
So there is one that I'll get to, but even before it, it was when they were going into the house and first meeting him, just the subtle things of showing her neck, like, reflexes when he's talking, like tensing up, and like her being very observant around the room, and like the girl who her mom had converted, that specific one, right? So, like, just her already surveying everything and already being skeptical, and she wasn't saying it because she's in front of him, but I felt like they did a very good job of her body language, just like subtle, like, reflexes, like scratching her neck, or like, like moments of discomfort that were being shown through physical movement, as opposed to her saying, like, well, this makes me uncomfortable, like, you could just see those things as little stuff started adding up to her as not really being, like, normal. And then the scene that did it for me, that I finally sold me, and I was like, yeah, no, this has been great.
She
camera
turns
work.
the
candle turn was fantastic.
Yeah.
And they did a couple of those scenes where when they were in the, like, pew setup, like the second room.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like when they're talking and it's on him, and instead of just flashing to their faces while they talk and then flashing back to his face, it would do these, like, pans around the whole room to slowly get back to their faces. Like, I just thought, like, there was a lot of stuff like that I really, really liked. And then even there's a shot toward the back half of the movie. They show the game board in the trailer, so, like, no spoiler here, but there's like a overhead shot of the house, but it's like a game board.
Yeah.
And I really liked the transition of her moving through the house, and you see her moving through the game board, and then as soon as she comes through, like, a door, it transitions out of the game room and back into, like, the full scale. Like, I thought there was a lot of really, really cool camera things, and I guess you're able to do that when you're really only dealing with, like, 4 major sets in this movie, right? Like, you had a little bit of outdoor at the beginning, and then everything else is like, we can play around with these 3 or 4 environments. And
because everything else was like 4 rooms.
Right? Like, and just use these rooms to make things as interesting as possible filming it, instead of needing to contrive anything. And
I imagine with, like, having it set primarily in one location, they're able to do a lot more with, like, permanent rigging to set that up and stuff.
Well, yeah, that's what I imagine with some of those camera spins and stuff like that, is it's on a track of some sort. That
it could just spend more time with the rigging in those rooms because they don't have to shuffle set to set.
Exactly. Yeah. So I thought they just were able to do a lot of really cool things, and I think that's how you make a movie like this feel more interesting, is really strong dialogue, and then visually keeping you interested while there's not a lot of action happening, by giving you a lot of subtlety within just the close-ups on their face, or their close-ups on certain body, like, body parts and things like that, or even just showing you the, like, early, the matches fall on the floor, and you see the matches on the floor, and, like, that's shown
that
to you.
whole suspenseful situation. Yeah.
But like that's shown to you early as a viewer. The same thing with the blade.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
you see that way before they ever pick it up. Which it's because it's meant to be like that's there.
Like, grab that. Yeah.
You know, yeah. Like, but we're not going to do it right now. We're just leaving that in the back of your head as a viewer to know that that's there, and we're going to come back to it.
There was a few times they did those like setups. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was really, really cool. I want to get into spoilers before I talk about some more of the more interesting or other stuff that I really liked from the movie. My very first note. Never mind. This is for a different Jesus movie.
Oh,
sorry. I told you I saw 2 religion movies and they're back to back in my notes, so that kind of fucked me up. I saw 2 movies yesterday, and we'll talk about on the regular podcast. Check that out, FTW GT Weekly. I saw this Heretic and I saw Elevation.
Yeah,
both take place in Colorado.
Oh, I didn't realize Heretic was in Colorado.
Yeah, Boulder.
Oh shit. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, they showed the sign for Boulder at the beginning of Heretic, and I was like, oh, that's really weird. Both movies I'm seeing back to back are like, taking place in Colorado. That's interesting. So yeah, I strongly recommend this. Not like Dante said, not a horror film in a traditional sense, like not a ton of like, brutality or killing or anything like that. More thought-provoking, edge of the seat. Where's this going? Like I said, cat and mouse game, so to speak. So I definitely recommend for me.
Yeah, no, definitely recommend. Like 100%. Everybody should watch this.
In 3, 2, 1. I did that in reverse. Spoiler.
Did you really?
I did 3, 2, 1.
I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, let's jump into spoilers. So I don't know. I don't know. I was trying to decide if I want to go like through the entirety.
We can start with a
movie.
light spoiler.
Yeah. Okay. What one?
Hugh Grant singing "Creep."
Yeah.
That was one of my notes, just because I really love that. Like,
even that whole thing though is super like
just
him using Monopoly and music as an analogy for religion
gets kind of like thrown out the window as more time passes between them.
Like, why is it wasn't really plagiarism so much as like you don't people just like the shinier new object. Like,
yeah.
So why like the whole thing is like, why does Judaism only take up 0.2% of the population when it's the original, the first, and then like the messaging hasn't really changed from this to this to this.
I mean, that was another good thing too, is like they told the story in a way where they let him make all these points and they kind of bring up that curiosity out of you, and they don't debunk them right away, but like when she challenges everything later and you're like, oh fuck, okay.
Yeah, well, so I think it's a couple things. I was going to definitely talk about that. I really do. The thing about talking about, I wish I knew more about religion. I do like them using the game board analogies and the music analogies for people who, like, I think that was a really simple way for a Neanderthal like myself, just like a person who literally knows nothing about this shit. Because it was just, I wasn't raised in a family that made me observe religion. I was able, if I was interested, they would have supported it, but I just didn't have to, and I wasn't interested. But so for people like myself, and I'm sure a lot of people are in this position where it's like, it just is a very simple analogy that made it easy for me to interpret and attach myself to, and be like, to your point, and get into what you were saying, be like, hey, this is really fucking smart. Like, why is it like that? Like, that's a great question. But then, I love that. And this goes back to my point with the camera work. I think all of those subtle shots of her already being onto something being weird very early on allowed it. So when you get to this moment and she reveals like, oh, I know you've been studying us, but I started studying you. And like, I know that you're, I know that
it makes it so when she gives that line, it doesn't feel like it's just out of nowhere.
Yeah. Like I know what you're trying to do. I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to call you out on all of this. And like, and then I love that this builds to, I love the character flip here, because this is one question I had written down, or I wrote a statement about it in my notes, and I want to know where you were at.
I think I know what you're going to say, because I was in a similar position.
I truly thought, and I guess this is a major spoiler, so if you you liked a minor one, I'll just get right into a major one. I was sure that she was going to be the final girl.
Oh yeah, so I think it was Sister B and Sister Paxton.
Yeah. So Paxton's definitely one of them. Obviously, B is a short version of her name.
Yeah,
wasn't
I forget what it was.
B.
It might have been Beatrice or whatever, but
Barnes.
That's what it was. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely thought Sister B was gonna be like the final girl in this. She definitely seemed like the one that was like more on her heels about everything, questioning everything, while the other one just kind of played like the ditzy blonde.
And she was just scared the whole time.
Yeah,
like she was overwhelmed by the situation.
So like part of me kind of felt like they didn't really deliver that transition that well, because she just went from like the clueless blonde, like even like so many times she said like, I'm not smart enough to like challenge it, I just don't believe what you're saying. So then all of a sudden making all these super valid points and like got really like intelligent towards the end.
I think that they did a good job. It did transition quickly. However, I like that like earlier the girl told her like, anything he says to you, challenge it. Like he wants to make you question everything, and you need to challenge him, and that's how you're going to win this. And I like that after she assume she meets her demise. Like, I like that she goes up the stairs, panics, trying to leave, realizes I can't leave, and it's just like, I need to question him on everything. Like, she just remembers all the stuff she told her because she has this realization, like, I'm on my own now. Like, I've got to get myself out of this situation. Like, I need to be stronger. And I don't think it was like, I think part of that gradual change is that she was still like that person. And that's why initially she's just like, I don't agree. But she doesn't have like a full formulated thought. And then she finally finds that one thing that she can attack him on. And she like really goes at him. And I guess that leads me to the thing I liked a lot about this movie. I liked the magic trick aspect of it.
Yeah.
Because I think that's another religious thing that they're kind of playing around with there.
Especially because that was the other thing, too, that struck me is like she obviously seemed like the one that was more deeply religious.
Yeah.
But then when he goes into the whole like pray for me thing, and she's like, well, actually, there's a study and prayer doesn't work.
Yeah. In the moments of her like bleeding out as well.
Yeah.
But that's also just her breaking him, right? Like that whole thing is them challenging back. And trying to break him the same way that he's breaking her. But yeah, I liked a lot that it's like, I imagine it like that cup game or something that they play in like New York and like the streets of New York.
Like
you know, the ball or whatever's in the cup, and they're moving the cup everywhere. And the idea is like they're talking to you and everything because they want to draw your attention away from where the ball is actually going.
Yeah.
And I liked that was what this movie really is like, and they showed it. Like, I liked the way that they set everything up, that this was all an elaborate trick. Like, it's not real. Like, no, I didn't bring somebody back from the dead. And like her being able to piece it out, that like, and that like small subtle thing of like the head moved, because when the head moved, when she said that, it's like, oh, like I thought it was a thing where Wolfsbane, like, you know, there's some drugs and stuff. They even talked about this in Smile. Like, I can...
Like, you have, like, body spasms post-mortem?
Well, no, I'm saying, like, they can stop your heart and then it can restart, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
no, so, yeah, I was thinking that.
Like, I was like, oh, is, like, Wolfsbane something to where it's going to... Or they're going to explain it to where it... Is the explanation he slowed her heart to a point where she's basically dead. But, yeah, it's going to move through her system, and that's how she'll wake back up. And I like that they didn't go that direction, and it's more like... No, like the head movement was because it wasn't the same woman, and she didn't put herself into the exact position that we had left the other girl. And that was just a small observation that like they gave you as an audience member, but it's kind of like that stuff earlier where they showed it to you like, oh, her head's not in the right spot, but it wasn't like do anything with it. It was kind of leave that there for 40 minutes later. We're going to come back to this. Yeah, we're going to come back to this, and it's going to be like, no, I started to put this together actually when I noticed her head wasn't in the right spot. That wasn't the same person, meaning you had another way to get somebody in and out of this room without us knowing. And
then he tries to call her, and he's like, well, tell me how. And she like quickly cracks it.
Yeah. Well, because it's like, yeah, I thought it was interesting that he's like, oh, because there's just a magic door. And I like that this is him. Again, it's like the facade of everything. And it's like
he's like, let me tell you exactly what it is so you can try and find everything but that.
Yeah, him trying to bully it a little and like hitting on the wall. It's like, you're so stupid. You think there's a fucking wall in here? It's like, yeah, I do. Like, yeah. There's something in here that you did. Did you buy the because we talked about like how it ends up being the other girl's kind of the like we thought the other girl would be the final girl. So I was very shocked when she just like
came back.
Well, no, not even that. Like when she got killed initially. Which I didn't think that the knife slit was like deep enough when he did it. It looked like it was like a
like almost like a paper cut,
on her neck.
But then all that blood, it was like, okay, no, she's.
And then when you see her later, the blood is all around the neck. It's not just in this one area.
Yeah.
But I still nonetheless liked that. I didn't expect that to happen, and that they just did that, and they kind of flipped everything a little bit on its head. I really liked that part of it.
And he like immediately calls her out as a non-believer because he notices the IUD.
Which that was another camera thing they did way earlier. They showed you that scar. He had identified that scar. Now I question, do you think, I thought it would have made more sense for his character to know what an IED is, or IUD, right? Is that what it is? IED is an explosive device.
Yeah.
IUD, I think, is what that implant is in your arm.
It might not actually be called an IUD.
Okay, well,
because I think IUD is in utero, which would be in the uterus.
Got it. Where's that? Yeah, but either way, like I thought him being like she's like AI or something like didn't he say she was like a robot or something?
Yeah, he said it's her programming. That's simulation.
Crazy. Yeah, like it would have made more sense. What she ends up giving as a reason would have made more sense to me for him to be like, she wasn't able to come back because she was impure, because she is clearly engaging in premarital relationships with people to the point where she needs this.
I think that was a writing thing where they needed them to be on opposing ends.
Yeah, but he's too smart to be like, it's a fucking robot, dude.
I mean, also, like, the whole point of this, though, is that he's so smart that he's trying to manipulate them.
Yeah.
On, like, what's mostly bullshit.
And then, like, so going into that more of that cat and mouse thing, when she, like, there's so many little subtle things. Like, you think that he moved the bikes and then puts the keys into the wrong pocket on accident. Like, like
and then you find out it's
like even like something as subtle as that again early in the movie, like they have this moment where it's like, wait, the key's in the other pocket, like he moved our stuff, like he went into our pockets. Like that's what you think that they're telling you.
Yeah.
And it's like that's like a good like hint for them to know like this isn't what it seems. But then also to be like, no, he did that intentionally because he never wanted the other girl to live. He had picked you out as his mark, as the person that he could target to really break down, because you're the one who's truly religious. And like the other girl is far more skeptical, and she has this thing in her arm like that she's already not following the values of the church and like all this stuff. So it made perfect sense that she was the one who dies once you actually get to that point.
Yeah.
And then I liked like her going through all these rooms down below, which it's like such a weird setup that he has all
comes to like a big loop.
Well, yeah, and it's like these rooms that are like Satanist rooms and shit, like through it.
That makes sense too, though, because he's studying all these different religions.
But he keeps those like tucked in his basement, and they're just hallways. They're not like real rooms, you know, like they're just walkthroughs.
Because I imagine that's all made like post construction. Probably had to improvise a lot of that.
You don't think he constructed that tunnel in his house?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
What do you think the builders are saying when he's like, so I want to have this dungeon? Well, so I'd really like to have like a church set up.
I really want to have my own personal place of worship.
Yeah, like I want 2 pews. I want an altar. Like I'd like that here. I study a lot of religion. That's fine, right?
Yeah.
But then I want like I guess you could call it a storm cellar. Like, you know,
I wouldn't use the word dungeon.
Yeah, like you may have seen like a dungeon before, and I'd really like if it looked like that. But it's more for storms that I'm gonna have this here for. And then off of that,
I need a sub-cellar for supplies.
Yeah, I need this random wall that's like not like it's like a door, but it looks like a wall over here That's going to lead to this little room. And then, I'm going to have this other thing that leads to like you're actually going to dig a hole under this dungeon. Oh, I said not a dungeon. It's storm cellar.
Yeah,
I'm going to have you put a tunnel, like just in case I need to go lower.
At what point do you think he's like, fuck it, let's just kill these guys. I got to do it myself.
Yeah. Well, after the digging's done, of course.
Yeah.
And then it's like I'd like to have like three rooms that you can walk through. Like they're really just like walkways that like I don't need to like do much in them. So so just like passages, but 3 doors. And then I need this room to be set up to be very gold. Very gold. It's a beat locker.
Yeah.
I hunt. I'm up in the hills.
Yeah, because who do you think he has to run water lines down there? He has a mister down there.
Yeah. Well, no, they showed what that was.
What was it?
The thing collecting the leak, right?
Oh, okay.
Because I think that's why they kept showing you. The very first thing he does when you meet him in the movie is he opens the door, and what does he have in his hand? The water, the plant water.
Okay.
Thing is in his hand, and you see it again when he goes into that room, and that's what he's using to pour them all water into their little like bowls that he's given them
for water. The chute collecting the water and all that. Okay, yeah, no, it makes sense.
Yeah, because the whole time I was wondering why that chute was so focused upon. Like they showed it multiple times in multiple shots.
I knew there was going to be things I missed in this. That was definitely one of them.
Yeah, like that's where I assume the mist or the water that he's giving them is coming from. Is that?
No, that makes sense.
Not that it was explicitly explained to me. And then I thought 2 things. I thought that like he was like, okay, can I ask you an uncomfortable question? He's like, let me ask you about having multiple wives.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you're teetering a line here.
Well, I didn't
your
know,
wife's upstairs?
I didn't know how uncomfortable he was going to get, to be honest. When he did that one, I was like, oh, that's it?
But again, that was that balance of like, he's able to talk about it in a way that he clearly knows so much about it that it made it less of an uncomfortable question because he was able to talk himself out of it.
He was able to kind of frame it in an air of curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I think that it led to like an interesting back and forth because even like the idea, and this is where it educated me a little bit, I suppose, is like the idea of having multiple wives and polygamy. It's like, so the way that the religion was taught, that the reason it was gotten rid of is because they needed to expand their amount of people in their church. So they wanted to have more kids. And that's why they had the idea of having multiple wives. But I like that he was like, well, no, if you were really educated on this, you would know that it's actually because he was cheating on his wife. And he used his power to basically manipulate the situation to say it's okay for me to cheat because in our religion, like our divine father says that we should have men should have multiple wives. And like, I like, and so I like that because it's like, that's such a man thing to like a man in power.
And I could see both things being like an active debate.
Yeah. But I but so that's him. Like, that's the idea of a man abusing their power, and then him being like in the end in that room. What's the one true religion?
Control,
and basically him. Like he is God. Like to these women, he is determined to be God. And I wish you got to see which girl was the one who because she essentially saves them by not giving the correct phrasing.
Oh yeah.
Whatever girl was playing the miracle. Like the second one that came
when
in.
she was like, it's not real.
And I'm sure like those girls are happy to die because they're like, this sucks.
Yeah.
So at least just kill me at this point. Because so I wonder, do you think he brings in 2 girls every time? And it's like one of them I'm going to probably kill one of them. And then the other one that I'm able to break becomes one of the girls that I keep in because like she was going to end up in that cage. Yeah. Right. Like was the whole idea. So I wonder if he's just constantly bringing in a couple ladies.
Well, I assume those missionaries probably show up in groups often.
Well, at least 2, and they're not supposed to go in if there's no wife.
It's all right. She's making pie.
Yeah, they never really got that pie. It's a bummer. Bummer, because the pie that he fed that girl, gross. Disgusting, but again, she's probably not had a real meal in forever, and he stuck that pie in front of her, and she was just like, at least I'm going out eating pie, baby.
Yeah, she was like, fuck it, it's a way out.
I'm into this.
It's either I end it now or I'm back in that cage for who knows how long.
Last thing. Did you were you surprised that girl was alive?
So, yes, because I was very sure she was dead. And I assume it was a device to kind of challenge the concept of the whole movie and like basically frame it like, hey, this was an actual miracle.
That's what I thought it
and
might have been too.
Also, right, is like this movie did a really good job of like showing you things and then bringing them into play like way later. I had completely forgotten about the wooden plank with the nails sticking out of it.
Yeah. I knew that was there. So I wasn't surprised when she used it.
Oh, as soon as she used it, I was like, oh, right.
Yeah. I don't know if I liked it or didn't like it because it definitely was just a plot device. So I agree. And I think it works within the messaging of the movie.
I think for a movie like this, it does need to end with some sort of like, what side do you fall on? And so I think this was a good way for them to kind of close it with like, hey, was it actually a miracle or was there some other scientific reason to explain why this happened?
I also like the very end where she gets out of the house and it's
butterfly.
Like the butterfly, but it's a vision. It's not like actually the butterfly.
I like that wasn't real.
Yeah, like I like
that would have been pushing it too far.
But I like the idea that she is like coping, and it's like she wants to believe that she like passed on, right, to like a better place in her mind or whatever it is. They never showed if she made the phone call or not.
True.
In like, there's definitely horror movies with that type of a scene that would have had this moment. Like I think about I guess Friday the 13th did this, where you think the whole movie's over and the girl's floating out on the canoe in the water, and then Jason pops out of the water and pulls her back underneath. Like if she's like outside, she thinks she's gotten free, and you just see him come and fucking grab her from the back of her head and drag her back into the house, and that's how it ends.
Yeah,
and you're just like, Heretic 2, here we go. I could have been into that.
Maybe I should have looked up if there was a post credit.
There is, but it's not like a scene. It's this was in trivia.
Oh,
it just says that none of this movie was written using. I'll get the exact one. So the end credits feature a statement: no generative AI was used in the making of this film.
Okay,
so they're just making a statement like, we use real writers.
Yeah, we figured this out all on our lonesome.
Yeah, 'cause we were asking the question.
Yeah.
It's like, I was watching it and I was like, damn, how much AI wrote this movie?
Never crossed my mind.
You're not thinking hard enough while you're watching these movies, dude.
Fair.
Yeah. Yeah, so any other things that you wanted to point out?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, I think I hit everything that I had kind of written down on here. So all in all, like I thought it was a really fun ride that kept you guessing and made you think. And like I thought there was a lot of visual, interesting stuff, and to boot, like a really strong dialogue through their characters that was acted out very, very well, and hinged heavily on really just 3 actors to carry the entirety of this film.
Yeah, but I think it also had a really strong story to carry it along. So all that stuff together makes it a pretty good movie.
Yeah, and for a pretty original horror movie.
Yeah, like a very original concept, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it did a really good job. So I ended up giving it 3.5 stars.
Okay.
And I put it at number 14.
I gave it 3 at 27.
So I was talking to you before we came on about my list. So my list is now at 92.
Okay.
And
I think I'm at 89.
When I was putting this at 3.5 stars, I put it in at 14. But then I look and Longlegs is at 19. And I'm like torn, because I think they're both really good.
And I think that's why I gave it 3 stars, because I also have Longlegs at 3 stars. So like that's where I think I need to reflow things, because I knew I needed to keep it behind Longlegs for me.
I'm okay with it being in front of Longlegs. I just don't know if I think 5 movies in front of Longlegs. But then there's just like we were talking about also, there's such a diversity in the stuff that's on here, like Fall Guy and Ungentlemanly Warfare are in between Longlegs and Hereditary.
And it's like, how do you rank those against those movies?
Yeah, those are very different movies. So I can't, like, do I just move them to put them next to each other for the sake of putting them next to each other? You know, so
That's where it gets really tricky.
Yeah, it's a lot of movies to deal with. But yeah, 14. A must see. I would say.
Yeah.
Stamp that on it. It passed the taste test. Let us know what you guys thought out there, though. Hugh Grant, should he get nominated for an Oscar? That's what everybody's saying out there. Should he get nominated? You haven't heard that chatter on the streets?
Nah, I think we're walking in different streets.
Yeah. South Bay. South Bay's a huge Hugh Grant audience.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Streets of Framingham ain't saying that. You know?
No. There's not a lot of foot traffic around that area. That's probably why you didn't hear it.
Makes sense.
Too far away from the main road. But until next week or next episode, guys, we'll see ya. Peace.
Before you leave, make sure to drop a like, comment, subscribe down below. Hit that notification bell.
Ding, 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 ding.
Catch you later.
For those with good taste.